But again, now we go to the Spurs side. It seems like the Spurs are going a complete rebuild, right? I don't think it was smart to trade Murray, even though there was reports that he wasn't going to re-sign with them once his contract ended. And they're going to go all in for the number one pick, which is kind of a risk now because most of the time the worst team does not get the number one pick, right? But I mean, do you think the Spurs are doing the right choice or making the right decision of going a complete rebuild?
Yeah, I think they were kind of in the middle
Mm-hmm.
the past few years. That's not how the Spurs runs their, Pop is not he's either all in or
Mm-hmm.
I guess all out. To me, I think this is his going away present. I
Mm-hmm.
truly do. He came in with Tim Duncan. He can go out with Victor. I can never say his last name. Wamanyama, the kid from France, who's right now it looks like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
odds-on favorite to be the number one overall pick because he's so talented. Can shoot it, can put it on the floor, and he's 7 foot, I think 6. I mean, he's almost a baby KD. So I think that this might be Pop's last year, and he kind of gives them a here you go, here's your next superstar, build around this, and yeah, I mean, to me, I thought I thought Becky Hammond was going to end up staying, and she would take over for Pop. Who knows? She might jump ship, coach, she might have taken this role in WNBA just so she knows how, being a head coach is for a year or two
Mm-hmm.
and come back. I wouldn't be surprised. But to me, that, like I said, they probably wouldn't have re-signed him, I guess. And they just said, you know what, we'll get stuff in return. God, that trade was it felt like it was months ago now. I almost forgot what they got for him. I think they got some picks. They waived Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah, it was pretty much just that. I think the Hawks also got another player, but they might have waived him too. But it was basically just picks and Gallinari.
Yeah, so I think for the Spurs, it was more of, okay, we're actually going for a hard reset here. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that we're going to try to be competitive. It's just, there we go. And you said it, there's a risk that, they don't even get. I haven't done too much digging into next year's draft, but I do believe next year's draft is supposed to be a pretty good draft. So even if they don't get the number one pick, I bet they can get someone. And it's the Spurs. They're like, their developmental system is like, up north in Toronto, in Miami, in Golden State. Those teams, they somehow find guys who no one knows about, but they develop them into really, really good quality NBA players, if not stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned Pop too, and you think he's probably gonna, like as you just mentioned, you think he's gonna retire after next year. But as you also mentioned Becky Hammond, and then there's also could be if Pop just decides to retire after next year, they could bring in Quinn Snyder. Maybe that's he's probably not gonna. I don't think he's anywhere at the moment,
Nah.
but they could maybe hire Quinn Snyder. But do you think Pop is done after this year, after this next season?
I think so. It's kind of setting up that way, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's anticlimactic in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, just, but I think he's making moves so that way when he does leave, they're not left with nothing. I think he's
Mm-hmm.
doing something where it's like, okay, I'm going to give you guys something, and I don't think he'll totally be out of the fold. I think he'll stay in the organization. I
It's
just
like,
think
yeah.
he'll take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, I can't go, be on the road every day at 70, whatever, how old is he, in his late 60s, early 70s? I can't do that grind anymore, but I'll still be here. I'll help out. And Quinn Snyder would be a pretty good, I mean, it would be big shoes to fill. And I know he didn't he achieved success in Utah, but not as great as I think they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to me, yeah, that you mentioned him and I forgot about him. I would say he's probably more of a favorite right now to get that job. But yeah, I think he has to be 1 or 2 more years. Maybe if they do get that number 1 overall pick, he says, I'll coach him for a year just to get, him into this, Spurs type basketball, and then he'll stop. But yeah, I think he has 1 or 2 more years left.
Yeah, and two, I think I originally thought Becky Hammond was going to be the next hire. She now is with the Aces as head coach. I could see her jumping ship after just 1 year, but she did sign like a 4 or 5 year contract, so maybe she's there for the long haul. I think Pop is still. I think he's the coach, and I can't remember if he's the GM or the president. but I wouldn't be surprised if he retired as coach and either became the GM or just the GM or president and was just as one of the top organizations. But I could see a lot of things happening. But again, we'll see what happens with the Spurs. They could, they could end up being better next year. I know they just brought back Keldon Johnson, which wasn't a huge sign, but it was something that they can build upon. But we'll see what happens with San Antonio. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and much more. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sports Town Podcast. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the right.